So I'm Andreas Kotsadam. I will present the paper Jobs and Intimate Partner Violence, Evidence from a Field Experiment in Ethiopia. And the paper is co-written with Espen Villanger. So intimate partner violence entails large costs in terms of women's health, productivity, shame, and fear. It is also a large problem in Ethiopia, which is the context that we're studying the effects in. And many women are abused every year, and many more live in the fear of being abused. So there are many theories about the relationship between employment and intimate partner violence. And these generally point in different directions, largely depending on whether violence is seen as expressive or instrumental, or whether the effects are moderated by other behavior and attitudes at the micro or macro level. So to take two concrete examples, the most popular theory in this field is that, well, if women become employed, they will become empowered, and thereby there will be less violence against them. Okay, but of course there are other theories saying that, well, if she actually becomes more empowered, then men will try to reinstate their dominance within the family by using violence. Or it could be the case that men now can use violence to extract resources from their partner, as there are simply more resources to extract. The theories point in all directions. And the present project is the first to identify the effects of jobs on intimate partner violence using a randomized field experiment. So what do? Well, we cooperate with large firms in Ethiopia to randomly assign applicant women that are equally qualified to either a job offer or not. Then we collect baseline data before the randomization and follow-up data after 6 months, after a year, and after 1.5 years. So the experiment and everything I'm going to present today is pre-registered. So what do we find? Well, first of all, if you just look at the baseline data, so no causal effects, but just looking at the correlation, we find that having had a formal wage job ever is positively correlated with abuse. That is, those that have ever worked before are more likely to have been abused during the last 3 months. We have a clear first stage, predicting employment, earnings, income, and time use. So if you look at this table, we see that the probability of having a formal job is much more than doubled. So our earnings, even income is almost doubled. And all of this suggests that women work more, and they do work more. They work more hours, and at the expense of their leisure time, and the household work of the women is reduced. But we can reject relatively small average effects on intimate partner violence in any direction. So we had a first stage, strong first stage, and the OLS regression suggests a positive effect, but the treatment effect suggests a negative effect, but it's very close to zero, and we can actually reject relatively small effects. So why don't we find that employment affect intimate partner violence? Well, it could be that employment does not affect important mediators such as empowerment and gender attitude. And this is our bet in the paper. We think that this is the reason why we do not find any effects, because we also do not find any effects on empowerment. In the paper, we go through lots of other types of explanations, and we do not think that these other reasons are driving the results. For instance, it does not seem to be the case that it affects women in different directions, and that this heterogeneity as masks important effects in different directions. It's also not the case that it seems to be the relative position within the household that matters. So if we use the treatment as an instrument for the share of earnings, we don't find that the share of earnings within the couple, for instance, seems to be very important. There's also no difference in the effects with respect to whether the husband is working or not. It could, of course, take longer time, but remember that we are following these women for quite a long time, especially in this literature. So we follow them for 18 months, and we do not find any differences in our first follow-up to our third follow-up, for instance. We do not think that the results are driven by reporting issues, since we do not find that we find different results if you use the list experiment, for instance. Okay, so our results suggest that we can reject relatively small effects on intimate partner violence. Of course, the margin we study is one where everyone is applying for a job. It could, of course, be that it's the application that is inducing the violence. It could also be that it's contextual level employment that's more important than individual level employment, and that would fit well with the bargaining theories arguing strongly for the outside option being important. But in any case, our results speak against the theories focusing on individual level or couple level resources. So please read the paper. There's much more there, and thank you for listening.